So in this lesson we're going to be going over actually connecting the controls to the joints so that we can actually start taking control, just like we've done with the joints at the bottom for the legs and the knees. We're going to do the exact same thing for the rest of these controls. We've already used one of the different types of constraining for the pole vectors, where we selected the joint first, the control first, sorry, and then the pole, then the IK, then we did a pole vector constraint there. So we're going to be doing that, and we're also going to be doing some standard parent controls, but not made. That's only going to be like from control to control. But when we're actually wanting to constrain a joint to a control, we have to do a constrain, and I'll show you why. If we were just to go and do a standard parent control, then you can see we've lost that connection there. And like I've discussed in class, the point of, or one of the points of a constrain is to not directly affect or not directly destroy the connection between a joint and everything then down the hierarchy. Like that. We don't want that. So what we're going to do is, for a lot of these, we're going to be using different constraints, so that we're not actually breaking the connection to the joints, we're only influencing the joints themselves. So let's go for the tail first. And I know that I want a certain type of control for the tail, and certain types of control for a few of these different objects. So I know that I'm only ever going to be rotating the tail. I'm not going to be doing any form of, I'm not going to be doing any scales or any translating. I'm only going to be rotating. So what I want to do is I want to actually do something like that, and I'll just set it back. So I'll do it again. So I only want to rotate this. So I select the control first, and then I select the joint I want to constrain that control to, and then I drop down my constrain menu, and I want to go to orient here. Now inside the rigging tab, these are already here. So in constrain, it's these create, parent, point, orient, scale, aim, pole vector, and inside our rigging tab, it's these group here, and this third along is our orient constraint. An orient is, you can think of that as like rotate. Point constraint, you can think about that like translate, like moving around. Scale constraint, obviously scale constraint. But for this, because we only want to have this rotating, we use a orient constraint. So now that now controls that function. And so what I'm going to do on the next one, I'll explain it again. We select the control first. So it's kind of flipped on its head. When we normally do a standard parent, we select the child first and then the parent. When we do a constrain, we select the, let's call it a parent first and then a child second. So selecting the control, then selecting the joint it's related to, orient, and then there we go. Don't worry about this freaking us up here. That's meant to happen for now. Then going down, orient, down, orient. So now each one of these controls the cluster of joints above it. But obviously we want to have maybe this joint control everything down the line, and then this joint control these two, and then this joint control everything down the line, and then this control everything below it. So how we do that is this is where we do a normal parent function. So I know I want this to be controlled by this, so I select this one first and then select the second one, hit P for parent. So now that is not controlled like that. I do the same thing, I select this So in this case it's tail 3 control, and then I select tail 2 control, hit P. Now these are controlled. And then I hit this one, and then I hit this one, P. These are controlled. And with all those parented together, we've got a, if we just select the first joints, we're just selecting a tail 0 or 1. We can control the entire tail as like a stiff object. Now, what's really cool about this, see, if we go down the line, going from the 4th to the 3rd to the 2nd to the 1st, and just select these, holding shift. So I'm holding shift when I do this. So select the first one, well in this case tail 04, and then shift, select the tail 03, tail 02, tail 01, and then I move them. We get a compound movement in the tail, which is very cool. So now we can get a much more realistic movement with our tail. And then if we do want to move the entire tail on its own, we can just select that first joint, and obviously go through and select each one of those controls separately. That's the tail done, absolutely done. So now I'm going to do the face controls, and these are done a little bit differently. Well, not a little bit differently, done exactly the same. It's just we use a couple of different constraints for these ones. So for the eyes, I'm going to use something called an aim constraint, and that's basically just this joint will always want to look at this control. This joint will always want to look at this control. A lot like a pole vector, but we don't need an IK system to do that. So I'll do the left eye first. So I'm going to select the control, left eye control, and then I'm going to select the left eye joint. And then inside either constrain, I'm looking for aim, or inside this tab here, inside our rigging tab, look for constrain here, the aim constrain. You can tell that's been done now. And do the other one. Boom. So now it's not very noticeable, but if you, I don't know how well it's going to be picked up on the video. These eyes are now purple, meaning they're being constrained or they're being affected by something. But if I move these around, you can see the little balls at the end of the chain are actually moving around, which is very cool. So when we actually skin our character, that's a way for us to actually control our eyes. So what I'm going to do with this joint, this control, is I'm going to do the orient constraint on this. So straight up orient constraint. Like that. That's all I need to do on that one. Same for the ears. But we're constraining on the joint where the manipulator is sitting. So it is a lot of repeated functions. So for this main head control, I'm going to orient that as well. And then for this neck control, I'm going to orient that as well. So it is a lot of repeated functionalities. You just got to think, how do I want this to be controlled? If it's something that is only moving, like actually translating, then that will be a point constraint. If it's something that is going to be rotating around only, then that will be a orient constraint. If it's something that's going to get bigger and smaller, scale constraint. Parent constraint is basically just the exact same thing a standard parent function does. Just it's not destroying the connectivity between one object or another. It's influencing. So now I'm going to take all these different controls and I'm going to parent them under this control, and then I'm going to parent this control under this control. So I'm just going to select all these and then select my head control and then I hit parent. Just parent, standard P. So now all those are moving like that, and then I select this head control, select the neck control, hit P. So now this head control works like that, and then this head control controls everything underneath it, just like that. So now we've got the head sorted, we've got the tail sorted. So far everything's only using a constraint, an orient constraint or a aim constraint. So for the tails, it's an orient constraint. Sorry. For the tail, it's all an orient constraint. For the eyes, it's an aim constraint. And then for the mouth, the neck, the head, and the ears, that is an orient constraint. And we're going to do an orient constraint on the spine as well. But we're going to go just to be economic and safe and stuff. It's probably not ever going to break. But I always like working down the chain towards the root joint, just like I did with the tail. Then I went down the tail towards the root joint. I'm going to go down the spine towards the root joint. So I'm going to select my shoulder or my spine joint 4, and then I'm going to select this spine joint 4 joint here. Then I'm going to hit my orient constraint. So that's now moving like that. And then I just have to go down the line and repeat the function going down. So spine control 3 to spine joint 3, spine control 2 to spine joint 2, spine control 1 to spine joint 1, now let's parent these together as well, just like we did before. So I'm going to select my neck joint, because that's in the hierarchy. Let's see if we can make it quite clear. So in the hierarchy, if we go from the outermost joints and going down the chain, the last control in this group would be the neck. So I'm going to go parent the neck. Well, yeah, parent the neck to spine 04, and then spine 04 to spine 03, spine 03. Spine 02, spine 02, spine 01, like that. So now all these control like that. Now, so when I'm constraining a control to a joint, that's when I do a constraint up here. But if I'm parenting, if I'm combining all these controls together, that's when I can do a normal parent. Okay, I know this can be a little bit confusing, but it's practice, practice, practice. And just like with the tail control, if I just grab that first one and move around, we've got some stiff movement, but we have got movement. If I actually go down and select each one of these in order, then we get a little bit of bend to our model, which is really cool. A little bit of compound movement. So one of the last things to do now is just to take this root control, and so this is a bit different. We can actually do a straight parent from this root joint, because this root joint hasn't got anything going into it. It is the very first joint in a cluster. It can't be separated from anything. Nothing is above it. It is the first one in the chain. So we can do a straight parent from this root joint to this root control, like that. Very cool. So like it can get a little bit confused about what to do and where, but it'll become very clear over time. And then I can just parent this spine 1 to my root control, and then my tail 1 to my root control. So now everything is controlled like that. And we get some really nice movement in there. So now what's left to do I believe, is just to actually parent all these controls to the group control, to the big global control. So I'm going to select the root control and then select the global control, hit P. So now our global control started to control the body. And I'm going to go select all the feet control and do the same thing, and then combine them with the not combine, sorry, parent them to the global control. So now, there you go. And then I can just take these pole vectors and do the same thing. There we go. So now everything is controlled. Now what's great about this as well is we can actually scale up and down. So we can actually scale our model up and down. We can have a creature come from nothing and then kind of morph out and then morph back to its real size. Very, very cool. And that is now our creature fully rigged. Right then. So that's quite a quick video, but it's fairly easy to work through. If I did go a bit fast, just stop the video and kind of work through what I was saying. So I'll just do a quick overview. So the tail, I went from the last in the chain, which in this case would be tail 04, and I constrained the control to the joint it's related to, which would be the point where your manipulator is sitting over top of it, right there. So I'm selecting, when we come to a constrain, we select the control first and then the joint. And with this one, because I only want to rotate it, I want to use an orient constrain, which in the rigging tab is here, and then your constrain is there. And then I go down the chain doing that. So and then tail 03 to the associated joint going down, and then I select and then I do the standard parenting, which I just hit P for that. I parent the tail 04 to tail 3, tail 3 to tail 2, tail 2 to tail 1, and then that should be everything there. So for the face, I did an aim constrain, little crosshairs there, it's quite useful. An aim constrain for the eyes. So I did an aim constrain from left eye control to left eye look joint, right eye control to right eye look joint. For the mouth, I did an orient constrain to the jaw 02 joint, so jaw control to the jaw 02. For the ears, I moved it. Remember in the video I said I'm just moving these up above here just because it's easy to grab, but I reorientated my pivot to be here, and these were done with an orient constraint, so control to joint ear 1, control to joint ear 1. And then the head, I orient constrained that to the head joint. The neck, I orient constrained that to the neck joint. The spine 04, I orientate constraint that to spine 4 joint, 3 to 3, 2 to 2, 1 to 1, and then I just did a straight parent with my pelvis control. So I selected my, this is a standard parenting, so I just hit P, and in that case we select our joint first and then our control. And we can do that on this joint, because normally on any of these other joints you absolutely wouldn't be able to do anything like that, but we can do it on these ones because it's the first one in the chain, so it's got nothing above it to break a connection with, so we can do a standard like that. And then I went through and I parented everything down the chain going towards the root, so all my head controls were parented to my head control, all my ears, my eyes and my mouth were parented to my head control, and then my head control was parented to my neck control, and then my neck control was parented to my spine 04, spine 04 to spine 03, spine 03 to spine 02, spine 02 to spine 01, and then spine 01 to root, and then tail 01 to root. And then I just did a straight parent from my root control to my global control, and then each one of my feet control parented to the global control, and then my pole vectors parented to the global control, and that's it. So the only thing I would do now, and I quite like doing this because I make mistakes quite a lot because I click too fast, is I would go through and anything that I'm not going to use inside here, I would actually lock out. I won't hide it because it's quite hard to bring it back when it's hidden, but I'd lock it out so then I can't do anything with it. So let's take our pelvis, our root control into consideration. I want to rotate this, and I want to do all this movement stuff with it, but I don't want to scale it. I don't want to have any scaling function in there at all. I don't want to do any of this sort of stuff. I'm going to leave that for my global control. So with this selected, my root control, I'm just going to highlight those three, and in fact I'm going to put invisibility in there as well. I'm going to highlight these 4 sections here: scale X, scale Y, scale Z, and visibility. And with those selected, I'm not highlighting the numbers, I'm just highlighting the words. I'm going to right click, and then down near the bottom there's lock selected. And now those have been locked because they've gone kind of like a murky grey blue. And if I try and scale, I cannot scale. Cannot scale at all. Unscalable. So now I can go through, and in each one of these joints I can say, right, okay, these spine joints, I don't want to translate them. I don't want to move them up and down. I don't want to do any of this. I can't anyway. But to stop me from accidentally doing that, I will select the translate section and the other section, and then lock selected. And then I'm just going to have to do that down the chain. So now I can't translate and scale are now both locked out for me. But then the global control can still do that. So okay. So here I know I only want to rotate this. So again, grab these, right click on there, lock selected. And if you do want to kind of move them for whatever reason, you can just go right click them again and go to unlock selected. So for these aim constraints, I know I only want to move them. I don't want to rotate them, I only want to move them. So I will do everything but translate. For the ears, I'm definitely want to just rotate them. For the mouth and the neck, again, definitely want to rotate. Yep. Tail as well. Select all those. I really want to rotate them, so lock out, translate, and scale. And you can go through and you can do that for whatever you want. And that now is our creature rigged. And the next step is just skinning and weight painting. Okay, very cool.